follow-up question. Like, what was your childhood like growing up in, like, with all the prejudice and racism going on?
Well, as I mentioned, our parents were very, very sensitive to the race prejudice that we might encounter, and so they were always telling us to behave ourselves and put your best foot forward and don't bring disgrace upon yourself or to the family. And that was kind of like an umbrella that you lived with. And so, but it was a good umbrella because we had to be careful of our actions. Because if we misbehaved out in public, the public would see us and say, look at that Asian or Japanese person, and say negative things, and that would add to their race prejudice. However, in the old Portland, there was, well, in North Portland, for example, the Old Town area is referred to Old Town Chinatown. But that area, Old Town, was, before World War II, was not really Chinatown. It was more like Japantown. So there was a Japantown northwest Portland, and there was a Japantown in southwest Portland where I grew up. And between the two Japantowns there were all kinds of small businesses, hotels and barbershops and things like that. And most of the population of Japanese ancestry lived in those Japantown areas because one of the reasons that immigrant Japanese and immigrant Chinese gathered together is because there's in well, it was convenient for one thing, and easy to start small businesses, and you could serve one another, and it's for their kind of like mutual neighborhood protection, and that was a natural focus. A lot of different immigrant groups did the same thing, and they lived in similar neighborhoods. In Japantown, southwest Portland, not only were there people of Japanese ancestry, but there are people of Chinese ancestry, and there are people of Jewish ancestry as well. So the minority groups kind of banded together, for one thing, because of in the poorer districts where we lived, then rent was cheaper, and we could help one another, in the neighborhood. So it was there was a commonality in the neighborhood. So that we grew up in that kind of atmosphere, but then the change, the remarkable change was when we were incarcerated, and then of course we all lived together. Then in 1945, when the exclusion order was lifted, then a lot of people started to return to their former homes, and but not everybody came back to Portland, say, for example. When we went into the internment camps, then we were permitted to go relocate to other areas eastwards, but not to the West Coast again. That was until 1945. So the environment changed, and then when I went into incarceration, I was 15 years old, and then I finished high school in the Minidoka camp. Then, because the West Coast was still closed to people of Japanese ancestry, when I graduated from high school, which was 1944, then I went to college in Ohio. Then when I got drafted, which was in 1946, I came back to the West Coast because by then, as I mentioned, 1945, we were able to return to the West Coast. So my growing up period I would say was completed when I left the internment camp to go to college, because I was 17 years old at that time, and going to college in Ohio. First I went to Cleveland, Ohio, then went to Delaware, Ohio, where the college was located. But that was a change in my growing up. I was independent and away from parental supervision. But I had grown up with good manners, I guess. So I was able to get along independently. So, and that was my growing up. Part of it under internment.
But just to clarify, so how old were you when you went into the internment camp?
15. I was a sophomore at the old Lincoln High School, which is now part of Portland State. And one of the really, really positive things that happened as a result of my being at the old Lincoln High School, when I was going to high school in Minidoka, the principal called me in one day and said that your Spanish teacher at the old Lincoln High School gave you full credit for that spring term. So he said, what that does, it gives you enough credits that you can graduate from high school a year earlier. So I graduated in 1944 instead of 1945, which was a good thing. Yeah, my Spanish teacher was Mrs. Setum from the old Lincoln High School. Yeah, getting that, because if I had to go that full year in 1945, then I wouldn't have had the experience of, I think I wouldn't have had the experience of going to college by myself in Ohio. And that was a remarkable maturing experience.